Hello, my name is Rupert Huber.
My name is Richard Dorfmeister, and we are Tosca, and we play tonight here in Budapest at the A38 anniversary party with our new live setup featuring Rupert Huber,
Richard Dorfmeister,
and J.J. Jones,
Aisha Eiser,
and Rob Gallagher, and visuals by
the Ars Electronica Future Lab.
And the light is done by Lucas, and the sound is done by Christoph, and our manager is here as well, and we're a big bunch of people. We played yesterday in Prague, and I think we're looking forward to the show.
We used to have concerts, the two of us. We used to have concerts, even more. I mean, we are school friends, no? So we started actually in. Yes, Tosca. It's 20 years old. Our musical history goes back further. So actually, our first gigs was in the church, doing this awful, like Bob Dylan sounding mess music, and. Then we went on to like performances in the nature with like poets reading. So we are quite used to some kind of unusual setups since our teenage days. Yeah. No, yeah. First it was a big like magic, no? Like for example, I destroyed my father's stereo system because back then on the tape, the music cassettes, if you would put away one of these knobs inside the tape machine, you could do like multi-layer recordings and stuff like that. I mean, I guess we are young enough to see electronic and acoustic instruments as all the same. So it was quite just another possibility to enhance what we do with music.
It's a long story. I mean, we've been to school together, and at a certain point we went to a recording studio. It was around early 80s, and we had some first experiences with recording in the studio. And there was no multi-track at the time, so we recorded it on two Revox. It's a ping-pong system, sandwich system, where you record something, you let it run, you play over it, and you record it on the other Revox. So we had this sort of style, and Rupert used to have a Korg MS-20, and we combined already at the time analog and electronic things with the drum machine, old Roland, and did our first steps in the electronic field. And then we got interrupted later by live, and then in the early 90s we found ourselves again through the home studio revolution with the Atari, the sampler, where it suddenly was possible to do the stuff at home, the home recording thing, because it was something special at the time, because you always had to go to a studio, you have to deal with the technician, and you have to explain yourself. It cost a lot of money. A day was expensive to book. So that was great. So we worked with used gear and developed our own style, how to produce with a mixer, a sampler, an Atari, a record player, and that was it more or less, and that we really developed a very economical style to work with very few sampling time, like around 12 seconds or so, to reproduce the whole song just with that short amount of time, and that was a good school. And then later we progressed in doing more albums, to building another studio, but we always kept that idea of being economical with the things and combining like really played stuff with some sampled things and recorded and electronic stuff, of course. But it was always the magic of that you can build something with like a whole track with electronics. That was just very magic. It's a loose sort of project that was meant to have a good time, basically, to meet and to produce some music without any second thought. You just meant to go meet up and have a good time together and see what comes out. So it was not planned as let's make a band and go on tour and have big success and something like that. It was just done on a very low basis, really, and this approach is still there in a way. It's just we try to have a good time. So we try to avoid things that nail you down too much. So if we would just form a band, okay, let's make a band and let's hire some musicians and then let's tour around, it would be not our thing. So it's more of an experimental thing, even if it ends up to be the same thing, but we try to have a certain approach, to keep it under a certain angle.
Both we share this kind of taste that lyrics in music are more like a sound than a message, no? And then there's these influences maybe from our old school days with all these poets and stuff, these kind of cut-up techniques from like sound poetry or something, and which we are not doing. We are not poets, but we kind of cut up the lyrics. So it's basically what is left over maybe from the language is like the mood, a certain mood or a certain sound or a certain vibe. You could replace some singers with a saxophone, no? Like some male singer could be a baritone saxophone, some female singer could be a soprano saxophone, but we don't like saxophones. We like voices, and this is basically the whole story behind. No, definitely not. There's nothing about science, neither science nor ideology, nor... It comes actually from the experimental side, yeah. It's just, you know, a singer comes or they send some files and then we fool around and maybe we change, use another track for another vocals, you know, just to, like with the jonglieren, no? With the little balls that you just throw and then...
Basically it's just two people in a room, two people in a studio, and we just bring in our experiences somehow and what happened in the meantime. That's the idea of the diary, to all the experiences you had before and somehow sum that up in that track to bring that feelings in. But then again, it's just sessions. It's just fooling around with beats, fooling around with guitars and bass, and after a while you get to a certain rhythm and to a certain bass and drums or guitar rhythm or something like that. But it can be even just a cluster of sound. It can be even, it's not always based on drum and bass. It can be just like a Stockhausen cluster, just like a wall of sound, you know. And we would then filter that out with some effects and stuff, and then something else comes out, which we then would make rhythmical and then bass and do a rhythmical thing around that. But it's just there's no real there's no format. We always do it differently, so we never do it the same way. And we don't say, okay, let's do it like this. We just do it. It's like a mutual understanding, really, that you only can have in this sort of special setup.
The older we get, the time gets so rare. So actually, for me, the most inspiring is to have time to make music. You know, because it's this and that, and everybody comes along. So the most inspiring for me personally, and with Richard, is when we have time to make music.
Time is definitely a big factor. If you look at it over the last years, I mean, I remember times when time had no value. It was just there. It was rather, oh, what can we do now? So we had too much time before, in a way. And now, with all the distractions you have, and you just grow older, you have the family, you have responsibilities to carry. You just carry more stones around, and it takes away your time and distracts you more and more. So we appreciate the time now in a completely different sense than before. So when we find the time to have at least 3 days in the studio, we say, okay, cool. It's a good thing, and it's an important thing. But at the same time, we love to see the whole thing not too seriously as well, because it would somehow build up a wall. The ideal thing is that we really forget everything around. In an ideal state, It's more the Suzuki idea, this Zen idea where you blank out everything. It's you don't think about nothing, and then it's right, and you're not worried, and you're not. There's always something on your mind. The phone, the thing, everything is so important. Everything is in the way, but for music making, ideally, you have this sort of state of mind, at least for a certain while. We developed a certain way of making our music, I think, and it's our 6th album, I think now, 5th or 6th album. It's the 6th, I think. 6. Yeah. And I think that's just a great gift that we have the opportunity to do it, because normally after a certain while things break apart. And you change, people are changing. And it's great that you have found a certain setup where you're able to continue music on a certain level. Because I mean, you can make music, everybody can have a laptop and can fool around with music and put it on Beatport or whatever. But to build up a certain identity over a long period of time, plus having a certain style that people can connect to, and you can draw people coming to your gigs, which have to be set up as well in a certain way, not just like playing records or something, which is another kind of art form in a way, but it's much easier in that sense, I think. And so it consists of a lot of little puzzle parts, this thing to set up for a long time, and to maintain this power for that amount of time. That's quite something, and that you don't give up, or that you don't lose your inspiration, or that you are so distracted by life that you don't find the time anymore, or that money is another question. I mean, as I said before, the things that are in the way. We managed to set up something new with getting in new people, getting a new video setup, getting in a new vocalists, and we just try to transform the studio thing onto stage, combining it with our old catalog, which is still fresh in a way, because it consists of lots of stuff that we actually composed ourselves. Lots of vocal tracks, which are great for performing live, besides all the other instrumental things we did. And so what we did now is combine these songs with a sort of an ambient or more landscape style idea, which is more the thing I said before with the zene, where you have to be really down and to be not distracted, even as a consumer. That would be even better if people would sit to consume, in a smaller room, for instance, or just to generate a certain quiet, like in a classical concert, where people have to be quiet, or in a cinema, people are quiet. Well, so if somebody's doing, they already, it's a problem, yeah. And so we combine this sort of piano thing with soundscapes, poetry, referring to the old days somehow, with the songs, and then even going in a little more dance style. So that this new setup is really produced in order to work out in all sorts of venues and audiences.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of playing around also with the objects on stage, no? So, as you heard, we always did like combination of acoustic instruments, electronic instruments, street acoustic instruments with electronics. So now we have the piano, which is actually a live source for live electronics, and then we have this other piano that is not even used as a piano, but just as a table. So we are referring to this kind of classical concert thing, but of course, it's not really necessary that people are quiet, because we could go to a place like this. But with this little tour, we're kind of sorting out where we can go. So we were in an opera house in Linz. Then we were in this music club yesterday. Today we are here. and let's see what the future brings. So it's really fun to have this. It seems that this concept works out. This kind of ambience peak, electronic, acoustic. The voices are, of course, acoustic, but then you dub them or something. It gets electronic, gets into a sound. So it's maybe the first time we really have an idea, or we can show an idea how we work. No, so it's kind of open doors.
I mean, the thing at the opera 2 weeks ago, that was really special, because there we performed with in a newly built opera house, which fits 900 people, and with a very good acoustic and a huge screen, and we had a little string quartet on stage. So that was quite something, and we really worked quite hard to get that thing done before. So that was quite some. But I remember even playing in Los Angeles, where Rupert played half an hour pre-program, just the piano. I mean, you have to imagine a 700 people room, yeah, and everybody's like, yeah, it's happening now, and Rupert's coming and playing half an hour piano. I mean, that was really quite something, but it worked somehow. And then I came in playing, like actually DJing with MCs. So we transformed into a party. Probably the very best thing was in New York. There we had a very good show, doing the same thing with the piano, but it was around the Daily 9 album in the mid-2000s somewhere, and that was quite interesting. It's more adult now, the thing that we do now.
You need a great love for an audience in a certain way to present them tracks, no? And all the work. And I wasn't ready to do that with music that was not made by me. So I'm like a bluesman. I always do the same, personally.
Well, I can continue now, but I don't. No, I mean, what you said with the DJ thing is because it's a different sort of thing. If you're a DJ and you move the crowd with rhythm and the power of bass and drums, and the whole dynamic around the DJing is different. It's in a way it's a different pair of shoes. And here you work in a team in a group, and you can have more actual direct effect on the people, I think, because you really speak to them directly. Whereas as a DJ alone, you generate something over a longer amount of time. And then you generate a certain mood, and it depends on the people, it depends on the mood, it depends on how good you are. And it's quite hard, because you're in focus for 2-3 hours and you have to perform. But at the same time, it has to look like Fred Astaire. It has to look as if it's very easy, you know, even if it's perhaps hard. So that's probably show business.